An employee of 14 years suffered severe psychosocial hazards as a result of being the subject of a workplace investigation. Now, most employers treat workplace investigations as a procedural step and something that is, while it's uncomfortable, it's treated as an administrative task. We now know that an investigation is actually a psychosocial hazard, which is really important for all Australian businesses, as employers need to manage that psychosocial hazard.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about an employer's obligation to manage a psychosocial hazard, it's really important to go back to where that obligation arises. So the Work Health and Safety Act basically clarifies an employer's primary duty to take reasonable steps to ensure the health and safety of their employees. So that's what we're talking about, the primary duty of care. So when we're in the realm of psychosocial hazards, we have some guidance from the Work Health and Safety Regulation, which defines a psychosocial hazard in Clause 55A as a risk of psychological harm which could arise from either a system of work, so maybe a policy or a particular procedure. It could arise from the nature of the work environment itself, or from just general interactions within a workplace.
And in this case, if we have a look at the background, there was an employee who was a manager of a high school, and she had been working there for 14 years. And in around April 2023, she received a letter. And in that letter, she was told that she was the subject of a misconduct workplace investigation. However, there were no particulars as to the allegations against her. And in that same letter, she was directed to leave her workplace immediately, not to return, and that she would be assigned alternate duties that she would need to perform in a separate location. So upon receiving this letter, you can just imagine this had severe impacts on her psychosocial health. And it's important to note that the investigation didn't actually conclude until February the following year in 2024, which means that the investigation went on for 10 months, which is a really long time.
Yeah, it's a significant period of time, and not unexpectedly, the employee later made a complaint to Safe Work New South Wales about the delay and the general management of this misconduct investigation. And what Safe Work did is they reviewed what had happened and they issued 2 separate improvement notices to the school. Now, an improvement notice is a tool that a Safe Work inspector can use if they reasonably believe that a person has contravened the Work Health and Safety Act and they require some corrective action to mitigate the risk to workplace health and safety. The first improvement notice that was issued was often concerning that specific delay. So even though the guidelines that the school was following said that most investigations should be concluded within 3 months, this was a guide only, and that was just quite insufficient and allowed the investigations to roll on and on and on for excessive periods of time. The second improvement notice was in relation to the alternative duties that had been assigned to the employee. It was an allegation that those duties weren't commensurate with the substantive roles, responsibilities that she had prior to the investigation itself.
Right, and we know that the employer tried to challenge these notices in saying that clauses 55A through to 55D were confusing and they weren't, the definitions that they found across other policies were inconsistent. So effectively what they were trying to assert is that it was merely impossible for them to comply because of this confusion.
Yeah, and this challenge went to the Industrial Relations Commission, who reviewed that first, more structural challenge to the notices. What the Commission found was that there wasn't much merit in this argument. The work health and safety regime has been in place for a long time. It's clear, it's workable, it's enforceable. So there wasn't an option for the employer to take a technical escape, if you can say it that way, and to avoid having to comply with the notices. The Commission also looked at the substantive challenge to each of those 2 improvement notices. And like we said beforehand, rejected that the measures that were in place by the school within their policies were adequate to mitigate the risk of excessively long investigations, and also found that the alternative duties weren't commensurate and also just created a secondary risk to that employee's health and safety.
Exactly. When we speak of this secondary risk, we look at the fact that the employee was performing duties at a certain level, and then when her duties were reduced to a level significantly lower than that, it just didn't fit the allegations that were against her. And in that of itself, it creates a psychosocial hazard because she's not doing the work that she's used to. And it's a hazard of work underload, if anything.
Yeah, and I guess not having clarity as to your roles, responsibility, your position. It's a really interesting case because it reiterates that a workplace misconduct investigation in and of itself is a recognizable potential psychosocial hazard. And then the failures in the management of that specific investigation, one being the way that this investigation was able to run to such an excessive length and the measures put in place for the alternative duties, they created this sort of secondary set of psychosocial hazards that weren't appropriately managed for this employee and unfortunately led to significant harm being caused.
So I guess what we can take from this, or what businesses should take from this, is that they really need to be cautious when conducting these workplace investigations and mitigating the risks which may arise throughout the process itself.